Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Peter with Aortic Warriors. We have the pleasure to have Janice Fox join us. She is the wife of Gary Fox, who was a survivor of aortic dissection. There were some developments recently, and that's why we're having this interview with Janice. And we hope you learn from her story and just create the awareness of aortic dissection out there. So Janice, welcome. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank
Please tell us what happened.
well, my husband had aortic dissection in March 27th of 2017, and from the day that happened, we learned that there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be learned about aortic dissections. When he arrived at the emergency room, he was quickly diagnosed as having high anxiety and literally told to get off the gurney in the ER. He was transported by ambulance, and to go out and wait in the waiting room with the general population because they had ruled out anything life-threatening. He literally waited 9 hours and begged for his life the entire time before they did a simple CAT scan, which determined he had a type A dissection.
Oh.
By the time they determined that 9 hours later, he had a 10% chance of surviving his surgery. And by the grace of God, he did. He pulled through, and we were released from the hospital with little or no knowledge of anything about a dissection. I never even knew what your aorta was, nor he did, because he was a little more knowledgeable, but I didn't. I instantly got on the website and started trying to educate myself on what happened to my husband when I found Aortic Warriors on your site. You interviewed us actually in June of 2017, just 2 months post-op, and he was, it was a marvel that he was alive, talking, walking, we were exercising. It was wonderful. And then I learned from the website, I just kept reading cardiologists, and I'm like, do I need a cardiologist? And found out that, yes, you're supposed to have one. So 3 months post-op, I get a cardiologist for the first time who orders a routine CAT scan and echocardiogram and ultrasound, 2 tests. So here we are, 3 months post-op, first visit to a cardiologist, because nobody told us, except I found out from the website, and they took those 2 routine tests. And after the test, they're like, oh my gosh, Mr. Fox, jump in this wheelchair. And they wheeled him through the corridor to the emergency room that was attached to the medical office because they saw something that disturbed them. So now, of course, we just are recovering from the first surgery when we are told about something drastically wrong. This was a different hospital. So after about 8 hours in that hospital, they transported us to the original hospital that did the surgery 3 months ago. And we get to that hospital, and it was just another nightmare. Again, I know it's because of lack of knowledge. We get there, and they're like, well, they sent the patient, but not the disc. So I said, I'll get the disc. I'll drive back there. It's 20 minutes from here. Took them a day and a half to get the disc. Once the disc arrived, the surgeon that did the surgery the first time comes into the ER and says, what are you guys doing here? And we're like, well, we were told something's wrong. And he said, well, I'm not paid to look at the disc, but the other hospital was paid to do it. But I had somebody look at it, and they don't know what they're looking at. That's what they told us. They didn't know what they were looking at. So 3 days in that emergency room, we got dismissed with basically that the other hospital didn't know what they were looking at. So fast forward, we continue to follow up as any good patient would. Mm-hmm. Every appointment, we never missed an appointment. Mm-hmm. I learned from, again, the website that you should have a CAT scan about every 6 months after having a type A aortic dissection. So at the 6-month mark, I kept saying, When's his next CAT scan? When's his next CAT scan? I was continuously told, not yet. It's not good for you to have the dye run through. Not yet. At the 1 year after the third year post-op CAT scan, he had the next one. And at that point, we found out that his true lumen was at 7.4, which anyone who knows about dissections knows you're, so sorry, but knows you're ready to rupture. So we have a new surgeon now who has done, he's done the surgery before where they've had to redo the first surgery. We're very confident. The surgeon was very competent. The previous surgeon, again, telling us we didn't know what he was looking at. At 3 months, we knew exactly what was going on. Apparently, we just were told not. We did not get a second opinion. Please, people, get a second opinion if you have any doubt of what you're being told. Again, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
I also should have insisted on the 6-month CAT scan, not waited an entire year between CAT scans. It's too long. So my husband, who was a warrior, a true warrior, survived a 12-hour surgery to repair his patch. His Darkon patch was replaced with a valve, but his arch had been damaged, so his arch had to be replaced as well, and a little into the descending aorta. And he made it through the surgery, and I was actually able to have him squeeze my hand, and never really got coherent, but he did squeeze my hand. But I did lose him 3 days after that surgery. Unfortunately, the 12-hour surgery is very difficult on a body, being on a heart bypass machine that long. However, I do know that he heard me, and I did get to talk to him, and I did get the confirmation by the hand squeezes, and I know everyone has their own faith, but we were Christians, and I know my husband's in paradise, but I still think that had we been more proactive in our own health care, that maybe I could have affected a different outcome.
I see.
So that is my story about my husband and the love of my life.
I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. When you contacted me today, I just had to talk to you and see what happened, because he was so strong when we did that first interview.
Yeah.
How old was he?
My husband was 66 years old when he passed. He was 64 when he had his dissection. Almost 65.
Okay. And so he went into surgery in August?
Yes, August 22nd. He went in for a redo of, they call it a redo of the aortic dissection. And the surgeon was very, very good about explaining how carefully you have to go in the second time, because you're going through all the first surgery stuff. So they let me know, and Gary, that it's going to be a long surgery, but he had done it before and he'd had great success. So, of course, we were hoping for that same outcome.
Yes, of course. Do you remember what was done on the first surgery?
Yes, a Darkon graft was done. Now, the second surgeon said that he would have just replaced it to begin with. Instead of patching it, a replacement would have been the prudent thing to do.
Okay.
Again, that's the knowledge. You don't know. You know, you hear one thing from one surgeon and something from another.
Okay.
But it's not my understanding now that it should have been a replacement, not a patch.
Right.
And had that been done, we would be here giving a second interview together. I'm thinking. But unfortunately, by the patch and not holding, it actually damaged his aortic arch, which was okay in the beginning, but the patch making the aortic arch go to what 7.4 is what the CAT scan that I had, the last one. That damaged his arch, and then there's where the complication lies. When you have to replace not just the valve, but the arch, and they had to replace his arch. There is where the complication goes, because it goes off into the carotids, and it gets very complicated to replace your aortic arch instead of just the ascending.
I see. So, I hate to have to bring you back to that moment. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So after the surgery, he was good for 3 days.
He actually never ever got up. He could only respond to. I would grab his hand. It appeared he had stroked during that surgery or shortly after it.
Oh, okay.
One side wasn't working, but the one side that was, I would hold his hand and I said, Gary, I love you, of course. Can you squeeze my hand? And he would squeeze it. And then I'd say, can you give me one finger? And he put a finger up. Listen, can you give me two? And he put two up. And I'm like, and they're like, this is good. This is very good. So we're extremely encouraged. The nurse came in and said, can you give me a thumbs up? And boom, his thumb went up. That was another. I was just celebrating. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can hear his brain's working. He stroked. Maybe one side of his body didn't work. We worked through it. No problem.
I see.
But then apparently the kidneys started to fail. After that, he had coded the first time, and they got him back, and then it was the third day that he coded the second time, and that was a more serious code where they realized the kidney dialysis wasn't working. And the only thing keeping him alive was the respirator. And so after I told them to do not resuscitate, I had him remove the life support because he had, I think after the second code, then they barely got him back. That I wasn't going to put him through anymore. He had suffered enough, and he had fought hard enough, and it was time for him to not have to fight anymore. It was his time to go to paradise.
I see. Gosh, this interview is hard. But thank you for pulling through with us here, and thank you for being willing to share your story with people out there. Because without your courage of sharing this, I'm sure there are people out there facing this situation. They just don't know where to turn. So thank you for being here for them.
Well, sometimes you put so much faith because the original surgeon saved his life. So who are we to question the time where he said they don't know what they're looking at? But no matter, the fact that he saved his life the first time was great. The fact that we didn't question the second, that's what you have to. Don't have so much faith that you don't, so much faith and gratitude that you don't think to question maybe the next time you talk to him, to the surgeon. I mean, you're grateful, but we were so grateful, I just never even thought to get a second opinion at that 3-month mark, which could have been huge. I feel that's why I need to do this, to let people know. You can't just be so grateful that they made it, that you're not questioning it from this point on.
And you had shared with me that one phrase that he kept saying over and over. I'll let you say that phrase.
For my husband?
Yeah. About how lucky he was.
Oh, yes. Yeah, my husband always said, how lucky he was, and I probably talked to you, and I can't even remember what I told you this morning. What phrase was that?
The doctors just kept saying how lucky you are to be alive.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Now that would have been our cardiologist, and every time we went to the cardiologist, we would say, well, this is bothering us, or this is, and he'd say, do you know how lucky you are to be alive? You know how lucky you are to be. That is what the cardiologist told us. I don't even know how many dissected aorta survivors he'd ever seen, because he was the nicest man. Again, we put all our faith, because he truly had our best interests in mind, but he let us go a year between a CAT scan. He was the nicest cardiologist. I just don't know how much knowledge he had with aortic dissection survivors, because whatever Gary would say, he'd say, you're just so lucky. You're just so lucky. It's a new normal. Don't worry about it. And we should have been worrying about it. We should have been, no matter how nice he was, and truly a good man who only had our best interest, but I just don't think the knowledge was there.
Yeah. Because so few of us survive it. Yes. Even when I shared my story with first responders or nurses out there, their response to me has always been, I can't believe you're alive. We only read about these stories in books. I've never actually met a person who survived it. So for them to be able to follow up on people like us, it's difficult because they don't have much of a precedent to go back to.
Which brings up one more point. I thought, listening to all the doctors, that he was doing so well. I actually went after being, home for months and months, a year and a half. I thought I could actually see my daughter and my grandbaby. And I left my husband in June. While I was gone, he had something was going on inside. My husband was acutely aware of his body and what was happening in his body. More so than even I. He knew what was going on. Well, when I was gone, he called 911 in June. Now, mind you, his surgery was in August, so this is a couple months before.
Yes.
Said, something's happening. Ambulance showed up at our home in June. They said, sir, we recommend we don't transport you. You're probably suffering from anxiety. This is the second time it's dismissed as anxiety. Had he gone in June, I don't know what the outcome would have been. But again, it was emergency ambulance personnel here saying, anxiety, we recommend you don't transport. I got a call in Wisconsin when I was with my daughter, my grandbaby, and I was told anxiety as well. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. And now I know it wasn't anxiety. So if you feel something in your body and you have to just tell the doctors, please do something for me. Fight for yourself.
Yes.
Fight.
You have to be your own advocate.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, I don't know if we cover this, but when he first went to the ER in March of 2017, what kind of tests did they do for him that they just said, oh, it's just high anxiety? What did they do to rule out that it could be anything serious until later on when they actually found out it was serious?
They put on the EKG.
Okay.
And his heart was great.
Okay.
My husband had a great heart.
Yes.
He had a strong, loving heart. And I guess his blood pressure must have been maintaining despite the dissection. So they quickly said he had anxiety, and they literally kicked him out of the emergency room, and they never ran another test until he finally was, he kept going to the triage nurse, and the triage nurse said, sir, you're starting to irritate me. You need to sit down and shut up.
Wow.
It was really that bad.
Wow.
We actually had a patient advocate at that hospital because we told them what happened in the ER. Sit down and shut up, you're irritating me. It said, here's 2 more aspirin. He was given like the course of 6 aspirin.
Oh my.
That's what it did for him. Before going into major open heart surgery, which that was one of the major parts of, they couldn't stop his bleeding.
Right.
They had fed him full of aspirin because, oh, you're in pain here, have another aspirin, have another aspirin.
Then the blood, yeah.
Yeah, and so that wasn't the lack of knowledge, you know, throughout this whole experience. Medical hospitals, emergency rooms, not knowing. And it wasn't until he got to the hospital 11 a.m., it wasn't until 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. that he got put back into the emergency room. And then they did the CAT scan around, after they decided to admit him for observation. We were headed upstairs, and I said, they're supposed to give him a CAT scan. Why can't he have his CAT scan? Once we get upstairs, that's going to be it. And so a very caring nurse, his name was Thatcher, and he said, let me see what I can do. And he got him a CAT scan in the ER just prior to being put up into an observation room. And after that CAT scan, we started being wheeled up to the observation room. We got up into the room for observation, and we just got in. The nurse started writing stuff on the chalkboard, and the phone started ringing in the room. And I picked up the phone, and I said, hello? And it was the ER doc saying, is the patient Mr. Fox in the room? And I said, yes, this is his wife. And he said, this is very serious. I can talk to you. Your husband had a dissection of his aorta. And I said, aorta?
Right.
Aorta? And my husband turned and looked at me, and he said, he heard me say aorta. And he said, aorta? I could die. He knew. I did not know an aorta. And then the doctor said, this is very serious. This is very serious. Your husband needs immediate open heart surgery. And that's when it went from being ignored for 9 hours to being in an operating room within 15, 20 minutes from that phone call. He was done. He was being operated on. It was that quick once they found out.
Wow.
But,
and what... and the thing is that the EKG was normal, and they never looked at that area again.
Nope.
With with one of our public awareness campaign is not just the heart, check your aorta too.
Yes.
Because same with me, when they checked me in the ER, my EKG was fine, and they did not know what was wrong with me for 8 hours.
Yes.
So here, we have. Experienced by Gary, same thing. I wonder how many people out there have the same thing. I'm not trying to say that we're chasing the ambulance and saying that every single person that has a normal EKG, you need to check the aorta. But perhaps if they did, maybe more lives would have been saved. Yes. But there should be some type of protocol. Right? If the EKG is normal, check something else, and then they would then be able to differentiate whether it's a heart condition or an aortic condition.
Right, because the CAT scan takes minutes. It's not a long test. It's very quick.
Yes.
Once you're in there, boom, they know. It's amazing that more are not done. More CAT scans, just as if they've ruled out heart. Check your aorta.
Yep, that's what we're trying to say. Not just the heart, check your aorta too.
And we did find out in our case it's family history.
Oh.
So, and this is very sad for me to say, but my husband's only surviving family member is a sister who won't get it checked. I guess I keep saying, this is hereditary. You have to, but some people, it's a scary thing.
Yes.
But it's so much better to have it done on a non-emergency situation than an emergency situation.
Yes.
It's so important. If you know it's in your family's history, please just get your get it checked.
Yes.
Tell them family history, get it checked.
Yeah, the survivability, if it's a planned surgery, is so much higher than if it's emergent surgery.
Yes, yes, absolutely, because they have everything in place.
Yes. Well, thank you for spending time with us, Janice. Is there anything else you would like to say in closing, either about Gary, to Gary, or to the rest of the Aortic Warriors community and anybody out there that's never heard of aortic dissection?
I would say, if you're having a heart attack in an emergency facility, please tell them, okay, if you've ruled out my heart, please check my aorta. It definitely needs to be made aware. And again, if you are a survivor, please continue to research and be your own advocate. It's very important that you just don't say, this man saved my life, and don't question anything from that moment on. You must be proactive in your care, or your husband's care. In my case, I was the one who did all the research, and I'm grateful for the 21 years we were together, married 18, together 21, love of my life, and I want everyone to know that you really should be aware and just fight for yourself or your loved one, and be your own advocate.
Yes. Yes.
That would be my advice.
Yes, that's great advice. Well, thank you, Janice. Before we close, anything else you want to say before we close?
No, but I definitely want to be involved in your global walk that you have every year.
Yes.
Maybe I can take a trip to California, or just do something here in Las Vegas where I live. But either way, I would like the awareness to continue, and I really appreciate your Aortic Warrior website information that allowed me to know at least everything that I know now, and we have to keep it up. It's very important.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
So thank you for giving us this website to turn to.
Well, thank you, Janice. After surviving it, I just had to, I feel, because there's no information out there, I feel that we have to be the one to push it out there. And even when we did the walk and we passed out postcards, there were people that really didn't care. Oh, never heard of aorta, it's not going to happen to me. And we get that, right? Before it happened to us, what's an aorta and why should I care?
Yeah, what is it?
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, now I think it's become, that's our mission. That's our mission, to push the information out there. So, yes, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And this will also be a tribute to Gary as well. We're learning from his experience. So his life, there is some tribute to his life that we can all learn from. So.
Yes, thank you so much. My love of my life, my soulmate. And I'll miss him, but I'm happy that some people can learn from this.
Yes. Well, thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
And, well, for all of you out there watching the video, watching this interview, please be an advocate for yourself. Not just the heart. Check your aorta too. And stay safe out there. Thank you for watching.
Bye.